Tokyo Mew Mew is one of the funniest magical girl shows I know. While the manga was mostly a romance, the anime went in a comedic direction. There's still lots of gags that I love to watch. We covered the original last time, and today we're going to be covering the reboot as well as all the spin-offs. This series comes from Nakayoshi's Media Mix era, where they would release series via simultaneous anime, manga, and merchandise. Other works that used this strategy include Sailor Moon, Ojamajo Doremi, and Shugochara. We've covered some of the original works on here, but I want to focus on the Mew Mew spin-offs and reboot. That's Mew Mew New, Au Lait, and A La Mode. Following the end of the original manga, A La Mode, a 2-volume sequel, ran from 203 to 204. Coming fresh off the original, it carries a lot of the same problems. The cast is quite underdeveloped, and without the alien threat, the story is at its barest, a simple romance between two characters. In my eyes, this is the best thing about Tokyo Mew Mew. Underneath the comedy and the high-concept conflict, it's primarily a love story, and this is usually the best part of each spin-off. The anime amped up the comedy while expanding the girls' personal lives, but at its core, we know who this story is really about. Beyond the brief sequel, there's also a short reboot comic that came in 2020, as well as Au Lait, which is a reverse harm spin-off. Let's start with the reboot, which is what most of you came for. The first and most obvious change are the outfits. The original anime from 2002 is pretty saturated with really blocky proportions. The new designs feel really modern with their flowing hair and pastel palettes. I like the ribbon accessory uniting them, as well as the new hair. Ichigo's red hair pops against the pink outfit, and Mint is less wound up, both in design and personality. Zakuro's high ponytail is my favorite since it adds a dramatic, cool, but controlled element to her design. Apart from that, I also love that Lettuce gets a skirt this time. It is a bit crazy she was running around in that for the whole series. It took me a while to get used to the tubular dresses on Pudding and Mint, but eventually I could wrap my head around them. Overall, I think they look more uniform and the color palette helps to modernize them. Mew Mew New ages them up to high school and condenses the manga's plot while adapting the best parts of the anime. This streamlines the story with a greater focus on interpersonal friendship, something that was lacking in the original. I still think the first anime is much funnier, with the second being a squeaky clean magical girl show. If I hadn't watched the original, I'm not sure this would have gotten me into it. So if you got into Tokyo Mew Mew with the reboot, let me know what you liked about it. The first episode follows Ichigo and Aoyama's first date. In the manga, this is where we start, and in the anime, we get a brief dream recap of how we got here. This anime starts by showing why she's interested in romance. As a high schooler, seeing couples all around her, Ichigo wants a taste of love too. Tokyo Mew Mew is primarily a romance, and this aspect holds it back in many places. I feel this explanation for her pursuit of love gives Ichigo a bit more agency in her relationship. Her love for Aoyama was not a given, but something she chose. Ichigo spots Aoyama doing kendo and grows curious about him. She learns that he likes animals and cleaning the river. By taking the time to set them up as individuals, we get to know each character. This is something that was sorely lacking in the first two incarnations of the story, so I'm glad they did it this time. Unfortunately, Ichigo's still primarily defined by this relationship. This is a problem that has its roots in the manga's concept, which we'll cover soon. On their date, the two go to a Red Data Animals exhibit. Here, we see the other girls all separately viewing it. In the manga, they all meet in a pretty convoluted sequence that we covered last time, but here Mint gave them tickets and it's implied she's running the show behind the scenes. When an alarm rings, the girls gather outside, where they get shot by the Mew Mew beam. This is how they get injected with animal DNA, and that's what allows them to transform. We hear some of the score for this scene, and honestly, I don't like it. The composer for this series also did Sailor Moon Crystal, and it sounds a lot like that. Shortly after, a monster attacks, prompting Ichigo to transform into Mew Mew Ichigo. The new transformations are much simpler in concept, but are cute nonetheless. I really like the door theme that they all have going on. Mint flies in to help, which is a huge change, considering none of them were active in the original, but she mostly encourages Ichigo to finish the fight, and with her big finisher, the fight is over. So, what did we learn from this first episode? Well, that Ichigo wants to experience love, and that Aoyama cares about animals. The aesthetic is really clean with the thinner lines and pastel colors. Everyone looks so soft. I also really like the new voice actors, specifically for Ichigo and Zakuro. I think Zakuro's new V8 is doing a great job. Megumi Ogata was Aoyama's voice actor in the original, and that deep but steady voice really suited his character.
僕は物心ついた時には施設にいた。だから本当の両親を知らない。
I do like what Yuma Uchida does, giving him a very soft voice,
桃宮さん、今日は誘ってくれてありがとう。
while saving his deeper range for spoilers, basically.
僕たち人間は罪深い存在なんだ。
I do appreciate all the work the VAs put in, because they were able to capture the new versions of these characters. Overall, I think it's a great debut, but the full impact of these minor changes will be felt as the story goes on. One of the biggest issues in the manga was the lack of individual friendships, so let's examine the Mew Mews one by one. Mew Ichigo is our main character, and she's an energetic lead that loves Aoyama. She's joined by Mint, a classy mean girl, Lettuce, a quiet kind girl, Pudding, an energetic performer, and Zakuro, the brooding teenage idol. This is all you need to know if you're reading the manga. Within the first anime, Ichigo, Lettuce, and Pudding formed a comedic trio engaged in hijinks, while Mint pined after Zakuro. But in the reboot, they all get focus episodes to interact and flesh out their unique dynamics. I think Zakuro had it the worst, so she gets small moments with each team member and acts more like a group big sister. I also feel that the reboot is more aware of her age, so she's written more like an older teenager rather than a mature adult. The first season is mainly focused on fleshing out the team, while the second brings in the girls' families. Let's go character by character to understand what changed. Ichigo is the Mew Mew's leader, and from the start she is defined by romance. Where exactly does this come from? Well, in an early one-shot, Tokyo Black Cat Girl, Hime Azumi uses her superpowers to fight aliens, while keeping it a secret from her crush Noda. This, as you can tell, is likely a prototype for what would become Ichigo and Aoyama's relationship. It could also just be a really common trope that the mangaka likes. The late Mia Ikumi presented this story to her editors, but was urged by production to make changes. Based on the translation, she designed Hime Azumi for a more dramatic series. Tokyo Black Girl is a condensed version of the series' main conflict. Can our main character balance her duties and desires? She wants romance, but she has to fight the aliens. I think this is a great conflict for a main character. Throughout the anime, Aoyama worries about Ichigo's whereabouts during alien attacks and feels slighted that she'd recklessly disappear. Additionally, during the mid-series boss battle, Ichigo loses her phone during one of the deadliest alien attacks yet, leaving Aoyama waiting for her in the rain. When she gets back to him, all drenched, you can see the love that the two share. At this point, Aoyama's already connected the dots and simply chose to support her, to keep her secret until she was ready to tell him. And in my eyes, that's what makes them such a good pair. While Ichigo is pulled between her wants and desires, Aoyama's struggle is more internal. He was born without parents and thus sought approval through his merit, his kindness, his skill. But Ichigo makes him feel like a person. She's one of the few humans he likes. The reason is a bit iffy across mediums, so we won't get into that, but I do think he can be a bit of a wet blanket when it comes to pollution. He's always got a speech ready about how humans are killing the earth, and I think their love for the environment brings them together, which is something the reboot emphasizes. Aoyama is a human fighting to save the earth, and Ichigo is a Mew Mew fighting to defend the earth in her own way. Aoyama is at the center of Ichigo's life, and their romance is what drives the story. In the first anime, he was a grounding force to her excitable energy, but here he's a lot calmer. He also has much softer features. I do miss the tan, but I can live without it. I don't think that's what he looks like in the manga, so they probably took creative liberties while coming up with that. It is a shame to see it go though. A lot of his creepy moments are reframed too. In the manga, Aoyama puts a cat choker on Ichigo so he doesn't lose her, but in the reboot, that cat choker is an accessory they get from a cat they both took care of. He's also just way nicer, a much softer man. During the second season, Aoyama's other half starts to awaken, and that's because Aoyama is Deep Blue, the alien supreme leader. But that's not all. Aoyama is also the Blue Knight. These two alter egos represent his two halves. The part of him that loves Ichigo became the Blue Knight, and the part of him that loves the earth manifests in Deep Blue. Both are parts of the whole, Aoyama. I never understood why people found him boring, considering he has all this going on, but that probably has a lot to do with one of the most controversial parts of this series is how the male love interests are written. The series is no stranger to forced kisses, physical assault, and choking. These are all harmful behaviors that go largely unpunished. The reboot removes a lot of it and reframes the few that remain as harmful. Most of this is carried out by Quiche, one of the series' major villains. For a show aimed at young girls, his behavior is quite disturbing. During my last video on the original, a few commenters spoke of their attraction to him. This is something I saw echoed in the comments section of Mew Mew Power Clips. As a male reviewer, I was happy to read the responses from women since it gave me insight into the series' writing. Tokyo Mew Mew in all its forms is primarily aimed at women, and thus it's going to explore female romantic fantasies, the most common in this series being the good boy versus the bad boy, the possessive Quiche and the kind Aoyama. In Au Lait, that's the kind Mew Mew Kitty and the villainous Wise Men. This explains but doesn't excuse the depiction of heinous acts in the series. It's also why I'm not too harsh on their inclusion, because I'm aware this isn't really for me, and I don't know if it's my place to be condemning this so harshly. I wasn't sure if I should include this in the final video, but I felt it was more important to give my stance and open up the comments for discussion since it is something that could really turn somebody off the series. But with that said, let's get right back into the review. Mint is the first active Mew Mew in the reboot. In the original, she was a mean rich girl who never did any work on her shifts. The reboot does away with her quips in favor of a much closer friendship with Ichigo. Since Mint organized the team, it makes sense that she'd be close to its leader. Ichigo is Mint's first teammate and her primary confidant. At home, Mint isn't taken seriously by her brother or father. The former is a young CEO, with the latter managing the Aizawa group. While her major arc in the original was about connection, this time she's focused on green business. It gives her a connection to the environmental plot, and her family's green machines tie into that too. While I did enjoy this change, I do think it's a bit boring compared to what I was used to. Besides, Mint's best writing has always involved Zakuro. The two's relationship takes on new life in the reboot, so let's cover that. In the original, Mint had a deep admiration for Zakuro that mostly went unmet. Zakuro was written as a lone wolf and thus rarely interacted with her teammates. She rarely reciprocated Mint's interest and the relationship remained one-sided. So, who is Fujiwara Zakuro? A girl who wants to surpass herself. Zakuro is a young idol with a cold exterior. When the girls first approach her to team up, she's completely dismissive. Despite Mint's clear adoration for her, Zakuro declares that she doesn't need friends. She will surpass herself all on her own. This sets her up as a great foil for Mint. They're both lonely girls who stay guarded by being cold. What attracts Mint to Zakuro is her strength. She really does seem to have it all together. She's strong and independent. But that's not true for either of them. Mint needs her friends to support her. And not just them, but Zakuro too. During a fight where Mint's dog is turned into a monster, Mint has to recall Zakuro to find inspiration. She remembers that Zakuro wants to surpass herself and decides that she will do the same. Her shining idol inspires her to act, and that's something that Mint will pay back. During a video shoot, the aliens attack Zakuro, but when the Mew Mews appear, they don't even ask for help. Mint is focused on protecting Zakuro. She respects her wishes not to join them and vows to become strong enough to protect her. And so, Zakuro sings. She'll do her job, and Mint will do hers. But there's something wrong. Watching Mint get beaten down in front of her, watching her fight to surpass herself, Zakuro sees the next step, what she's been looking for all along. In that moment, Zakuro decides to join the Mew Mews, seeing it as the next step on the road to surpassing herself. By having the girls inspire each other, their relationship becomes a bit more reciprocal. Zakuro inspires Mint, and Mint inspires Zakuro. Through this 3-episode arc, we come to know both girls better and understand their relationship. Turning Zakuro and Mint into foils is really smart because they're always together anyway. In the original, Mint's foil was a rich girl named Kana. The two were raised quite similarly, but only one of them opened up to others. So the reboot takes that theme of connection and applies it to both Mint and Zakuro. In Season 2, Zakuro shoots a music video with a tough director, Rika. She's known for bringing out different sides of performers to broaden their appeal. And in Zakuro's case, she wants to bring out more than her cool persona. This is a struggle due to her strict professionalism, and it's only when Zakuro's friends get involved that she's able to relax and act freely. Zakuro surpasses herself by joining the Mew Mews, and so does Mint. While her family makes green machines, they often end up being used in the aliens' plans. This version of Mint is an entrepreneur who wants to be taken seriously, and while she does make a few inventions, Mint's efforts as a Mew Mew do much more in less time. In fact, toward the series finale, Mint begs her brother to take her seriously and let her help save the Earth. But it's only when she transforms that he finally listens. For both girls, becoming a Mew Mew brings them closer to their personal goals. It's small changes like these that really elevate the characters. If only all the girls were so lucky. The remaining 2 members of the team suffered from what I'm calling adaptation sickness. Lettuce and Pudding had very little focus in the original, to the point that many of their major episodes in the anime were completely original. Lettuce has always had pretty messy writing from a convoluted debut, but Pudding was at least funny. Let's see how these 2 characters got handled in the reboot. Starting with my fave, Pudding, she's a hyperactive performer who's also the group's little sister. A lot of her plot lines put her in dire situations for comedy. I've said it before, but she goes through the most as a character. Living alone while caring for 5 siblings, getting trapped under a dome that's collapsing. If she wasn't so upbeat, this would probably just be depressing. The reboot doesn't have much to work with, so instead, we get a few bits of the manga's footnotes mixed in with anime canon. Across 1.5 episodes, we get her debut, hear about her family, and see her get trapped underground. This is bad, pretty bad, but we have to admit that bullying didn't have a great run in the original either, so I won't be too harsh. Buling's major character episode initially focused on her family and the struggle she faced raising 5 children alone. When she falls ill, her community is forced to step up, with one of the kids' kindergarten teachers stepping in as a mother. This gives her some relief and feels fitting for a character going through so much. Can a little girl really bear the weight of a whole family? In the reboot, the answer is yes. Pudding's family episode is combined with the one where she's trapped under a sinking dome. Using the dome plot adds a great metaphor for the pressure she faces, but that's really the most we get. Pudding takes pride in her role as a big sister because that's what she promised her late mother, to be a good big sister. What an odd moral to take from this story. It almost feels like we went backwards. The manga didn't do much with her family situation, but we did know her dad was away doing martial arts. The original anime expanded on this, giving us a really good character episode, but the reboot, it simply didn't care. While Pudding was still enjoyable, I do wish the series had condensed her writing into just one cohesive episode, rather than bits and pieces of her best hits. Now, Lettuce is slightly better. I've always found Lettuce's writing really bad. In the original, she was a kind but insecure girl who struggles to make friends. Her debut is a really big mess, but her friends are bullying her and make her go check out a ghost story at school, which the Mew Mews find out about, and guess what? It was Lettuce. It was pretty confusing to me even in the manga, and I'm glad the reboot condenses this into just one cohesive story. Here, Lettuce takes on her friends' bullying since she knows they need an outlet. But, in return, her outlet is rampaging at the school pool. Ichigo hears Lettuce's friends talk about the ghost story, and when they go to investigate, they find out that it's her. In this version, her actions are much clearer. Lettuce has struggled to connect her whole life, and so she settles for what she gets. But when Ichigo reaches out to her, she sees a way out, and sees that perhaps even a girl like her can find friendship. A lot of Lettuce's character episodes would focus on her kindness, to the point of being a doormat. The worst offense is when a designer steals a doll that they both worked on and takes full credit. In response, Lettuce forgave her and just focused on the feelings of joy that the doll would create. This is just one of many bad moments for her, but the worst is in the swimming episode where she, a teenager who couldn't swim, took a child who also couldn't swim to a secluded part of the beach so they could practice. Incredible. I think that the reboot gives her a lot more to work with. It keeps her timid but adds a focus on romance and knowledge. She gets some more ship tease with Shirogane and Pai, but more importantly, comes to learn about the alien's history. As the Mew Mew with power over water, it makes sense that she dives into the alien's past and explores Atlantis. It was a surprising but welcoming route to take her character in. I would have liked to see more of Lettuce's personal life, but I guess that just wasn't in the cards. It was only, 24 episodes? I wasn't expecting much. Compared to Pudding, I'd say her bland arc was elevated with some new themes and a much tighter focus. I especially loved the scene between her and Zakuro as the two hug following her rejection. It's a new bond that we didn't get to see and helps cement Zakuro as the group's big sister. Overall, there's just a lot more group interaction between the pillow fight at Min's house, shooting the music video together, and all the stuff they do for Ichigo and Aoyama. This feels like what the manga could have been, a fun story following 5 girls fighting to save the Earth. So who are they saving the Earth from? The aliens are probably the most left field aspect of the series. The Mew Mews are fighting an alien race that used to live on Earth. However, they left the planet due to mass catastrophes and have now returned to reclaim their home. This is why they're so upset to find the Earth polluted by humans. In response to this threat, the Mew Mew Project is founded. 5 girls are injected with animal DNA and fight to defend the Earth. The girls fight alien-animal hybrids that wreak havoc and accelerate the environment's destruction. This conflict is also reflected in Ichigo's primary love interests. The first is Aoyama, a kind human who cares for the environment and works to protect it, while the other is Quiche, a possessive alien who is happy to destroy the environment if it means getting rid of humans. The series' politics are never taken that seriously, but I've always found the aliens' depiction a bit careless. At its worst, the alien plot feels like the conspiracy boards of the worst people on Earth, but on a good day, it feels like the aliens are here to give a voice to nature, the voice of the thriving Earth that once lived. Once again, the manga, anime, and spin-offs have very little interest in this. The anime is usually the most politically literate, and this is something the reboot carries on. Min's family company does a lot of environmental work, and the series finale restores both the Earth and the alien planet. It's a very, we can all get along kind of ending, which is a huge change from the original where the aliens just left. I guess they could fix it on their own. I know it's more detailed than that, but you can just watch the original video. If you want to see these themes tackled more in depth, please watch my Otona Precure review. This anime also had an eco-terrorist villain, but wrestled with it a bit more in 12 episodes than the series did. Both have their own flaws, but I'm glad I got to watch 2 magical girl anime with such similar themes. The overall theme in both is that together we can save our planet, which is optimistic, but it is also a kids show, so I wasn't expecting, serious critique. In 2004, after the end of the anime, we got the series' direct sequel, Tokyo Mew Mew A La Mode. This 2-volume story follows Berry, an energetic girl, and her childhood best friend, Tasuku. With such a short run, the series is mostly a straightforward romance between the two. Compared to Ichigo, Berry's a lot more energetic, which makes her a much more fun lead. She's also a regular girl in a rich school, which adds a few unique gags to her school life. It's in Tasuku where we see a bigger change though. He's Berry's excitable childhood friend who might cross her boundaries but truly cares about her. The series takes the best of both Quiche and Aoyama to make a somewhat unique character for him. I especially love the scene in the Return manga from 2020 where he asks Aoyama to be more assertive and spend more time with Ichigo. Despite that praise, the other characters in A La Mode are pretty bad. It says a lot that Berry becomes the Mew Mew's leader without much friction. I mean, could you imagine if Sailor Moon just left and there was a new girl and nobody cared? It shows how weak those group dynamics were in the original, that Berry could just be swapped in for a few chapters. The 4 veterans feel trapped in limbo, with most of their lines being recycling old gags. It's really a testament to the series' strengths and weaknesses. Tokyo Mew Mew excels at writing good romantic drama, but sadly, if the characters aren't in love, they're probably not doing much. It's a real shame too, since it could easily have been original, but I'm sure they had their reasons. Beyond this, there is a 7th or 6th, according to the wiki, Mew Mew, and that's Ringo. She was a part of the PlayStation games, which I didn't get to play, but I do like the apple theme in her outfit. It is ridiculous that her weapon's just apple on a stick though, that looks terrible. The other big spin-off is the gender-swapped Olay. Tokyo Mew Mew Olay is actually pretty good. Based on its aesthetic, I wasn't expecting much, but this one has really good character writing. Every Mew Mew and villain felt fleshed out and had a unique personality. I would only recommend this to older audience though, due to its content. The spin-off includes assault, potential colorism, and the usual problematic acts of the original. Unfortunately, some things don't seem to change. Despite that, I did enjoy reading it more than A La Mode due to a lot of refreshing twists and a gender-swapped cast. It was fun to have a woman be in the chair making all the analysis this time, and it was just a fun twist to see the guys be the one running in and taking commands. It was refreshing. If it seems up your alley, I really do recommend that you read it. The final piece of Mew Mew media that I read for this was the brief return manga of 2020. This is a sequel to both the original and A La Mode, but I don't think it adds much. If you really miss the characters, then I guess you should give it a chance, but I would really like to see a brand new Mew Mew project sometime in the future. Maybe they could have animals from all across the earth. I think that would be pretty cool. But with that said, I'm really happy that I came back to this series. Based on the comments, it seems we all love the show despite its obvious flaws. I had the best time with the original anime, which was just a great adaptation. I won't rank each property for my safety in the fandom, but I think you guys can tell what landed for me. So what did you think of Tokyo Mew Mew and its spin-offs? Did you enjoy the reboot? And what would you like to see covered next? I've been getting a lot of suggestions for a certain classic, so let's hope I can finish it soon. Once again, big thank you to the patrons. Let's thank this month's supporters. Gabby, Imaru the Fiore Lover, Rugia, La Perla del Gacha, Gerard Kachaturian, Mohammed Askanor Hakim, Nya EXE, It's Blue, Reski Amalia, Suzaku, Celine Envoy, Ayusha Rai, Elacor Karan, Kid Kate, Evelina Poinsett, Lumin An, Babu Braz, Marielle Ishimwe, and Nomura. If you enjoy this, be sure to show up next time where we'll be covering